Part 3, The Trial of Survival. The night on Zero Prime was anything but peaceful. The sky glowed an eerie red as the planet's twin moons cast long shadows over the jagged landscape. The human team, led by Lieutenant Jackson Hale, had set up a makeshift camp in a shallow cave. The Dreelan, under Commander Krolek's command, were stationed a few kilometers away. Despite their earlier cooperation, the competition between the two teams was far from over. Jackson sat by the campfire, studying a holographic map of the area. "We're close to the extraction point," he said to his team. "But the hardest part is yet to come. We need to cross the acid flats before sunrise." The acid flats were a notorious region of Zero Prime, where pools of corrosive liquid bubbled and hissed under the toxic air. One wrong step could mean disaster. The team prepared their gear, ensuring their suits were sealed and their equipment was secure. The Dreelan struggle. Meanwhile, Krolek and his team faced their own challenges. The Dreelan were strong, but Zero Prime's unpredictability was wearing them down. Their suits were damaged, and their supplies were running low. "We can't afford to fall behind," Krolek growled. "The humans are weak, but they're persistent. We must reach the extraction point first." One of his subordinates, a young Dreelan named Zorak, hesitated. "Commander, perhaps we should consider working with the humans again. They seem to understand this planet better than we do." Krolek's eyes narrowed. "We are Dreelan. We do not need help from outsiders." The acid flats. As dawn approached, both teams set out for the acid flats. The humans moved cautiously, using probes to test the ground before each step. Jackson's team had developed a strategy to navigate the treacherous terrain, but progress was slow. The Dreelan, on the other hand, relied on their brute strength and speed. They charged ahead, ignoring the warnings of their sensors. It wasn't long before disaster struck. One of the Dreelan stepped on a thin crust of rock, which gave way beneath him. He fell into a pool of acid, his screams echoing across the flats. Krolek watched in horror as his comrade was consumed by the corrosive liquid. "Fall back," he ordered, his voice filled with frustration. A reluctant alliance. Jackson and his team heard the commotion and quickly made their way to the Dreelan's location. "We can help you cross," Jackson offered. "But you'll need to follow our lead." Krolek hesitated, his pride warring with his need for survival. Finally, he nodded. "Very well. But this doesn't mean we're equals." The two teams worked together, with the humans guiding the Dreelan through the safest paths. It was a tense alliance, but it worked. By midday, they had successfully crossed the acid flats. The final challenge. The extraction point was in sight, but one last obstacle stood in their way, a massive chasm, spanned by a crumbling bridge. The bridge was unstable, and the weight of both teams would likely cause it to collapse. "We'll go first," Jackson said. "Once we're across, we'll secure the bridge for you." Krolek shook his head. "No, we'll go first. We're stronger, and we can handle the risk." The two leaders locked eyes, each unwilling to back down. Finally, Jackson relented. "Fine. But if the bridge collapses, we're all stranded." The Dreelan began their crossing, their heavy footsteps causing the bridge to sway dangerously. Halfway across, a loud crack echoed through the air. The bridge was giving way. "Run," Krolek shouted, urging his team forward. They barely made it to the other side before the bridge collapsed, leaving the humans stranded. Humanity's ingenuity. Jackson and his team were undeterred. "We'll find another way," he said. Using their remaining equipment, they constructed a makeshift zip line to cross the chasm. It was a risky move, but it worked. One by one, the humans made it to the other side. Krolek watched in silence, his respect for the humans growing despite himself. "You're full of surprises," he admitted. The extraction. As the teams reached the extraction point, a Galactic Council shuttle descended to pick them up. The trial was over, but the impact of what had happened would resonate far beyond Zero Prime. The Council representatives greeted the teams, their expressions a mix of awe and disbelief. "You've proven yourselves in ways we never imagined," one of them said. "The galaxy will never be the same." Jackson and Kralik stood side by side, their rivalry tempered by mutual respect. "Perhaps we're not so different after all," Jackson said. Kralik nodded. "Perhaps." The aftermath. Back on the Galactic Council station, the results of the trial were announced. Humanity was officially recognized as a Deathworld species, their resilience and ingenuity earning them a place among the galaxy's most formidable races. The Dreelan, while still proud, had gained a new perspective. "You've shown us that strength comes in many forms," Kralik said to Jackson. "We may have underestimated you." Jackson smiled. "And we've learned that even the strongest can benefit from a little humility." The beginning of a new era. The trial on Zero Prime marked the beginning of a new era for humanity and the Dreelan. Their alliance, born out of necessity, would pave the way for greater cooperation between their species. As the galaxy watched, the ultimate Deathworlders stood united, ready to face whatever challenges the future held. Part 4, The Turning Point. The Galactic Council chamber was abuzz with activity as representatives from across the galaxy gathered to witness the aftermath of the trial on Zero Prime. The humans and Dreelan, once bitter rivals, now stood side by side, their alliance a testament to the power of cooperation. Ambassador Lyra Voss stepped forward to address the council. "We have proven that strength is not just about physical power. It's about adaptability, ingenuity, and the will to survive. Humanity is ready to take its place among the stars." Commander Kralik, though reluctant, added his voice to hers. "The humans have earned our respect. They are not weak, they are resourceful. Perhaps there is much we can learn from each other." The council members exchanged glances, their skepticism slowly giving way to acceptance. "Very well," the council leader said. "Humanity will be granted full membership in the Galactic Council. But this is only the beginning. The challenges ahead will test your resolve like never before." A new threat. As the celebrations began, a sudden alert echoed through the chamber. The Council's holographic displays lit up with urgent messages. "An unknown fleet has entered galactic space," a Council aide reported. "They're heading straight for Zero Prime." The room fell silent as the displays showed a massive armada of sleek, black ships. Their design was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. "Who are they?" Lyra asked, her voice tense. "We don't know," the council leader replied. "But their intentions are clearly hostile. We must prepare for war." The call to arms. Jackson Hale and Kralik were summoned to the council's war room. "This is no ordinary enemy," the council leader explained. "They've already destroyed several outposts on the outer rim. If they reach Zero Prime, the entire galaxy could be at risk." Jackson studied the holographic map, his mind racing. "We need to fortify Zero Prime. It's the only planet in the region with the resources to withstand an attack." Kralik nodded in agreement. "The Dreelan will defend our homeworld, but we'll need the humans' help. Together, we might stand a chance." The defense of Zero Prime. The human and Dreelan forces worked together to prepare for the impending invasion. Jackson's team used their engineering skills to reinforce the planet's defenses, while Kralik's warriors trained for the brutal combat that lay ahead. As the enemy fleet approached, the tension on Zero Prime was palpable. "This is it," Jackson said, addressing his team. "We've faced impossible odds before, and we've always come out on top. This time is no different." Kralik stood beside him, his claws flexing. "Let them come. We'll show them what Deathworlders are made of." The battle begins. The enemy ships descended on Zero Prime, their weapons raining destruction on the planet's surface. The human and Dreelan forces fought back with everything they had, their alliance proving stronger than anyone had anticipated. Jackson led a squad of humans through the battlefield, using their knowledge of the terrain to outmaneuver the enemy, focus on their weak points, he shouted over the chaos. We can't let them gain ground. Kralik and his warriors engaged the enemy in close combat, their brute strength and ferocity turning the tide in several key battles. For Zero Prime, he roared, his voice echoing across the battlefield. A desperate plan. Despite their efforts, the enemy's numbers were overwhelming. We need a new strategy, Jackson said during a brief lull in the fighting. We can't keep this up forever. Lyra, who had joined the defense efforts, suggested a daring plan. What if we lure them into the acid flats? The terrain would neutralize their advantage, and we could trap them there. Kralik's eyes gleamed with approval. It's risky, but it might work. Let's do it. The trap. The human and Dreelan forces executed the plan with precision. They staged a retreat, drawing the enemy into the acid flats. As the invaders pursued, they found themselves trapped in the treacherous terrain. Jackson's team activated hidden explosives, causing the ground to collapse and trapping the enemy in pools of corrosive liquid. Now, he shouted, signaling the final phase of the plan. Kralik and his warriors launched a counterattack, their ferocity unmatched. The enemy, caught off guard and weakened by the acid, was quickly overwhelmed. Victory at a cost. The battle was won, but the cost was high. Many lives were lost, and Zero Prime's surface was scarred by the conflict. As the dust settled, Jackson and Kralik stood together, surveying the aftermath. We did it, Jackson said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. But this is just the beginning. The galaxy won't be safe until we know who's behind this. Kralik nodded. Whoever they are, they'll regret challenging us. The Dreelan and humans will stand together, no matter what comes next. A new alliance. The victory on Zero Prime solidified the alliance between humanity and the Dreelan. The Galactic Council, impressed by their cooperation, granted both species a leadership role in the defense of the galaxy. As the galaxy prepared for the next phase of the war, Jackson and Kralik knew that their journey was far from over. The ultimate Deathworlders had proven their strength, but the greatest challenges were yet to come. Part 1: The Arrival of the Unknown. The Galactic Council chamber was a marvel of engineering, a vast dome filled with representatives from countless species. The air buzzed with tension as the Dreelan delegation, led by Commander Kralik, took their seats. The Dreelan were a proud species, hailing from Zero Prime, a planet so hostile it was classified as a death world. Their reputation as the galaxy's fiercest survivors was undisputed, until now. Ambassador Lyra Voss, a human with sharp features and a calm demeanor, stood at the center of the chamber. Her presence was a stark contrast to the towering, armored Dreelan. Esteemed members of the Council, she began, her voice steady, we come from Earth, a planet that has shaped us into who we are today. Commander Kralik leaned forward, his claws tapping impatiently on the table. Earth? Another death world, you claim? Prove it, his voice was a deep growl, filled with skepticism. Lyra activated a holographic display, showcasing Earth's diverse landscapes. Our planet is a paradox, she explained. It is both beautiful and deadly. We endure hurricanes that can level cities, volcanoes that reshape continents, and predators that have hunted us for millennia. Yet, we thrive. The council members murmured among themselves, their curiosity piqued. Kralik, however, remained unconvinced. Words mean nothing. Show us your strength. Lyra smiled faintly. Very well. We propose a demonstration. Let us prove our resilience in a way that leaves no doubt. The council agreed, and plans were set in motion. The Dreelan, confident in their superiority, prepared to witness what they believed would be a humiliating failure. But as the holographic display faded, a sense of unease lingered in the chamber. The humans were an enigma, and their arrival marked the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. Part 2, Earth's Secrets Unveiled. The council chamber was silent as the holographic display flickered to life once more. This time, it showcased Earth in all its chaotic glory. Towering volcanoes spewed molten lava into the sky, while massive hurricanes churned across vast oceans. The footage shifted to dense jungles, where apex predators like lions and crocodiles roamed freely, their eyes gleaming with primal ferocity. Commander Kralik crossed his arms, his expression unimpressed. "This is your proof? A few natural disasters and predators? Zero Prime has worse." Ambassador Lyra Voss stepped forward, her gaze steady. "Commander, these are not just isolated events. On Earth, these phenomena are constant. Our planet is alive, and it challenges us every single day. We don't just survive, we adapt, we innovate, and we thrive." The hologram shifted again, this time showing humans in action. Footage of firefighters battling wildfires, engineers constructing earthquake-resistant buildings, and scientists studying hurricanes played across the screen. "We don't fight against nature," Lyra continued. "We learn from it. That is our strength." Kralik snorted, his claws tapping against the table. "Strength? You speak of hiding behind technology. True strength is facing danger head-on, without fear." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Then let us show you what true strength looks like." She turned to the council. "We propose a trial, a test of survival on Zero Prime. Humans against Dreelan. Let the galaxy see who truly deserves the title of ultimate Deathworlders." The chamber erupted into murmurs. The idea was unprecedented, but the council was intrigued. After a brief discussion, they agreed to the trial. Kralik smirked, confident in his species' superiority. "This will be entertaining," he said. "Prepare to fail, human." As the meeting adjourned, Lyra returned to her quarters. She knew the challenge ahead was immense, but she also knew humanity's potential. Earth had prepared them for this moment. The preparation. On Earth, preparations for the trial began immediately. Lieutenant Jackson Hale, a seasoned survival expert, was chosen to lead the human team. Jackson had spent years in Earth's most hostile environments, from the frozen tundras of Siberia to the scorching deserts of the Sahara. He was the perfect candidate to represent humanity. "This isn't just about survival," Jackson told his team during their briefing. "It's about proving that we belong in the galaxy. We're not just survivors, we're pioneers." The team trained rigorously, simulating the conditions they expected to face on Zero Prime. They studied the planet's flora and fauna, learning to identify threats and opportunities. Meanwhile, the Dreelan prepared in their own way, relying on their brute strength and familiarity with Zero Prime's dangers. The arrival on Zero Prime. The day of the trial arrived. The human and Dreelan teams were transported to Zero Prime, where they were dropped in separate locations. The planet was as hostile as described, its gravity was crushing, its air thick with toxic fumes, and its landscape a jagged, unforgiving terrain. Jackson and his team stepped out of their shuttle, their suits equipped with advanced life support systems. "Stay sharp," Jackson warned. "This place doesn't forgive mistakes." As they ventured deeper into the wilderness, they encountered Zero Prime's infamous predators, massive, insect-like creatures with razor-sharp claws. The team worked together, using their training and ingenuity to fend off the attacks. Meanwhile, the Dreelan team, led by Kralik, faced their own challenges. While their physical strength allowed them to overpower many threats, they struggled with the planet's unpredictable weather and toxic flora. The first encounter. Days into the trial, the human and Dreelan teams crossed paths. Tensions were high as the two groups faced off. "You're out of your depth, human," Kralik growled. "This planet will break you." Jackson stood his ground. "We'll see about that." Before the confrontation could escalate, a massive tremor shook the ground. A nearby volcano erupted, sending lava and ash into the air. Both teams were forced to work together to escape the danger. As they ran, Jackson noticed Kralik struggling with the uneven terrain. Without hesitation, he reached out and helped the Dreelan commander to his feet. "We're stronger together," Jackson said. Kralik hesitated, then nodded. "Perhaps you're not as weak as I thought." The turning point. The trial was far from over, but the encounter marked a turning point. The humans had proven their resilience, and even the Dreelan were beginning to see them in a new light. As the teams continued their journey, they faced new challenges: acidic rainstorms, predatory swarms, and treacherous cliffs. Each obstacle tested their limits, but the humans' adaptability and teamwork shone through. Jackson's leadership inspired his team, and even Kralik found himself respecting their determination. As the sun set on Zero Prime, the teams prepared for the final leg of the trial. The galaxy watched, captivated by the unfolding drama. The ultimate Deathworlders were about to be revealed, and the outcome would change the course of galactic history.